Hi, I'm Katie. Thanks for joining us again today. I'm an occupational therapist here at Big Blue Canopy. I have two helpers with me. This is Caroline and Isabella. They're going to help demonstrate some activities for you guys today. I wanted to show you some activities you could do at home to work on like pre-writing strokes, handwriting, shape identification, and drawing shapes that add a little bit more tactile input to it to help keep kids' attention. They tend to get bored pretty quickly of paper and pencil activities. So just giving you guys some other options on things to try. So Izzy's gonna help us out first. I have a Ziploc bag that just has shaving cream in it. You can use a sandwich size bag, a gallon size bag, whatever you have at home, and fill it with shaving cream. And then you can work on like pre-writing strokes, imitation, writing letters. It works best if you have a high contrast background. So since the shaving cream is white, if you have like a vinyl tablecloth you can put underneath it, a towel, a like placemat you can put down underneath it so you can see the background as you're drawing your shapes and lines on it. So you can have kids just kind of like as he's doing, poking and pushing on it to get some feedback. You can also ask them to draw things for you. So like Izzy, can you do a line down for me? Perfect, and then you can see in the background that shows through so they can kind of see the shape. Can you draw the letter S for me? Good job. So you can have them draw stuff, or you can draw things and ask them to identify their shapes or their letters. It gives a little bit more feedback, but it's not very messy. I do recommend that you tape the top of the bag closed so that the shaving cream doesn't end up squishing out of it if you have kids that get really excited and start like banging and hitting on it. So pull that up. If you have kids that want a little bit more input, you can use shaving cream right on your tabletop. You want to be careful depending on your finish. So you can do again like a vinyl tablecloth, a placemat, something like that, so that you're not ruining your tabletop. But you can put the shaving cream right on the surface, and then they can play and engage with it that way. That gives them a little bit more feedback. It's more of a wet, cold, kind of sticky texture that they can play with. They can draw shapes in it, they can draw pictures, however they want to engage in it. You can ask them to draw things for you. So can you draw the letter F for me? Perfect. If you're working on like pre-writing and letter writing, you want to make sure you're encouraging the right letter formation. If you're working on pre-writing, which would be like your vertical lines, horizontal lines, pluses, circles, you want to make sure you're encouraging kids to start at the top of whatever they're writing. So if they're using shaving cream or paper, they always want to start at the top and go down, and start at the left and go right. That helps to reinforce our reading skills as well as teaches good practice for when they start to write letters. If you have a kid that's a little bit more averse to the wet textures and they don't want to touch it, you might see like finger slaying or pulling back. Try not to force them into that. Go ahead and just let them clean it up. A lot of times you'll get kids to touch the shaving cream when you ask them to clean it up versus wanting to actually play in it. So we'll get this shaving cream wiped up. If they don't like the wet textures, but they they are seeking like textures, they want to touch everything and engage in things, you can try more of a dry texture. So you can just take a cookie sheet or a pan that you have at home and fill it with either like flour, rice, sugar, salt, anything like that you might have at the house. And it works the same kind of with the shaving cream, but it's a drier texture. So the kids can either draw pictures in it, they can get that tactile input. I would recommend maybe putting down again a sheet or a towel in case you have kids that get really excited and spill it. But again, you can have them work on, can you do a circle for me? And then you'll be able to see that pan through the background and be able to practice working on their shapes. You can work on letter writing, spelling words, working on sight words, but just another way to kind of engage and get more feedback versus doing paper and pencil, but not having that wet, sticky texture like you would have with the shaving cream. If one, you don't want that mess, and two, kids are more averse to the wet textures. We're gonna put this one away. Another thing that a lot of people have in their house that you can use is Play-Doh. So there's a lot you can do with the Play-Doh. We can work on hand strengthening, we can work on graded control, you can roll the Play-Doh into snakes to make letters. So we're gonna do just a couple things with the Play-Doh to kind of give you guys some ideas. So you can have the kids practice just for hand strength to squish it. You can have them work on some graded control and see if they can roll it into a ball. Some kids will push really hard because they can't grade that, or too soft and not be able to get it to form into a ball. Once they've got it into a ball, you can have them smush it down into a pancake. I really like to have my kids write on the Play-Doh. Play-Doh gives great feedback when you're working on pre-writing strokes and letters for their grasp. If you have a kid that has too loose of a grasp and they don't hold on their pencil tight enough, they're not going to be able to write in the Play-Doh. That pencil's going to move all around as they're trying to write, and they're not going to be able to make that impression into the Play-Doh. The other great feedback it gives you is if you push too hard. So can you write a letter B? And if you push really hard, you can see Caroline's Play-Doh is tearing apart. So it gives a proprioceptive, a visual, tactile input back to help reinforce to the kids if they're using the right amount of pressure. And also, it's much more fun to write in Play-Doh than it is on paper some days. So you can work on that. You can also work on some graded control if you can get them to roll it into snakes. Again, it's a great visual tool for pressure grading. So you can have them work on, let's roll a fat snake. Can you guys roll a fat snake? Perfect. And then after you roll your fat snake, can you roll a skinny snake for me? So it gives a great visual feedback right away for how much pressure to use. So we're gonna have to push more to get that nice skinny snake and push less to get more of that fat snake. So it gives, again, that good visual feedback for how much pressure they're using. You can also take, once they've made their snakes, you can break them apart. Izzy, can you make the letter F? You can break those snakes apart and then use them to form letters. And then once they have their letters formed, you can have them trace it with their finger, again, to reinforce letter praxis, letter formation, or you can have them, you gotta squish it together. Or you can have them, again, use the pencil to then trace across the letters to, again, just work on reinforcing that letter formation, letter praxis. So all these activities have been more sit-down activities. I just want to show you guys one more way you can still work on like letter identification and writing skills while kind of getting up and moving around a little bit. So Caroline and I are going to go over here just a little bit. Move all this stuff out of the way. So I have set up an easel over there. If you don't have an easel, you can just put a piece of paper on the floor, on a table. You can tape it to the wall, anything that works for what you guys have at home. And then I put together just a small sensory tactile bin that just has some pasta in it. You can use pasta, rice, dried beans, any kind of noodle, anything that you have kind of laying around your pantry at home. And then if you're working on letters, we have the magnetic letters that go on the fridge, so you can grab some of those and drop those in there. If you're working on numbers, you can use puzzles and put numbers or letters or shapes, depending on what skill you guys are working on. And then we can add some movement into practicing some of this. So we're going to start over at the board. All right, can you bear crawl over? So you can do different movement activities. You can have them do like bear crawling, grab a letter, and then bear crawl back. And then we're going to write it up on the board. You can have them work on telling them what letter to get. You can have them pick letters on their own. If they're working on sight words or spelling words, you can put the letters for their sight words and spelling words in the bin, and then have them come over, tell them what words you want them to spell, have them find the letters, and then take them back and write them out. Can you hop like a bunny? You can do hopping. You crab walk back. Crab walking. So there's all kinds of different movements you guys can do to help give them that input, give them a movement break while you're, if you need a break between doing some sit-down schoolwork. You can still maybe work on some academic things, but make it a little bit more fun with adding some movement. You can use slither like a snake. If you have multiple kids, you can also have them do races. You can race kids against parents. You can have, who can get 5 letters first and get them back over there. Another one you can do is wheelbarrow walking. So we're going to wheelbarrow walk back. If you support your kids at their ankles, that's going to be the hardest for them to maintain to be able to wheelbarrow walk. They're going to have to maintain the majority of their weight. The further up their leg, closer to their knee and thigh that you go, the more support you're giving them. So that's a way to modify it. If you have a kid that maybe has a weak upper body, can't quite wheelbarrow walk, if you hold them further up on their knee or their thigh, you're supporting more of their weight, and so then you can modify and grade that so that they can then work on that activity. Perfect. So you can also want to make sure if you're doing like wheelbarrow walk that you're protecting yourself as well. You don't want to hurt your back or hurt yourself while you're working with your kids if you have older kids. So that's a way to kind of mix movement in there as well. If you guys have any questions, you can always reach us at bigbluecanopy.com on our website or our Facebook page. We're going to go live again tomorrow with Miss Jessie, and she'll have more speech and language activities for you guys. I hope this was helpful, and we hope to see you guys back.